and I forgot that I had to present. I was so engrossed in the conversation. It was beautiful. Uh, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about AI from your perspective, really, right? So there are different ways we talk about AI, but when I talk to CXOs, it's a different way of looking at AI. When I talk to junior data scientists, it's a different way of talking about AI. So we have all sort of read the blogs, taken courses, and got ourselves confused about what the hell is this, right? And it seems very powerful, and we are all struggling with how to create a culture of AI in the company, right? How do we transform our companies from what we call a data-rich company to an AI-first company, right? And that's the journey that everybody is going through. So how do we orchestrate that journey? And what are the key sort of ways of thinking about AI? So I'm going to talk about a few notions of AI thinking, which are very critical that I learned over the last 20 years. I worked at Google, Microsoft, Yahoo, Ola, did my own edtech startup, and now at Reliance. So I'll bring all that experience and give a lot of examples as we go along. So let's start with the context we are in, right? So the context is very beautiful. You have all seen the kind of diverse technologies that we are in the midst of, and it's the convergence of these technologies that is creating a magic, right? AI was there in the 70s, but there was no cloud, there was no devices, there was no connectivity, there was no internet. So AI was only, in the labs, in the AT&T labs and some IBMs. But now it is in front of every farmer, every teacher, in front of every student. So that is the promise that, is possible. So AI is just one of the enabling technologies. All the technologies coming together is going to create the magic. But AI is a very, very special technology. It is not like any other technology. And recently Sundar Pichai made a very bold statement. He said AI is one of the most important things humanity has ever done before. And humanity has done amazing things, right? We have invented the wheel and the internet and conferences and Netflix and all of that. And AI is supposed to be even more profound than that, right? Now, when I read this sentence, I don't see this happening yet, right? I still see that our farmers are committing suicide because of no advisory coming. Our students are struggling with what to study next. Our businesses are still making a lot of, inappropriate decisions and all that. So I don't see AI promise having fulfilled after 20 years of doing it. So this sentence is really about the next 20 years of what AI can do. I think it will become one of the most defining technologies of our times. And we need to kind of upskill ourselves in thinking about what it is, how do I adopt this systematically, is there a process to it? Or is this just a bunch of tools that I buy from a bunch of vendors and somehow, figure out what to do with that, right? So how do we think about AI in a profound way? Now, if I look at the various ways in which the next generation products are evolving, if you think about Ola as a great product, Alexa as a great product, LinkedIn as a great product, Twitter was supposed to be a great product, right? So we are thinking about all these products. What makes them great products? And there are 5 I's that I keep looking at, right? So one is they scale at a planet level. So there is infrastructure, and there is physical infrastructure, and there is digital infrastructure. So how do we scale physical and digital infrastructure? Digital is very easy to scale thanks to cloud. Physical is the one where we have problems, right? So, and we are heading into a digital physical world. So Amazon is a digital physical product, if you will, and it needs to worry about digital physical infrastructure, right? Second is the interface. We are now moving our interfaces to be more human-centric, right? Instead of touch and feel and swipe and click, we are able to do speech-enabled interfaces, right? So how our interface is evolving. The third I is the intelligence, right? Ola, Uber is giving you a car within 5 minutes, right? Google search is now becoming perfect. Netflix is recommending the right movies. So intelligence is now part of every product that we use. And how do we do this more and more all the way to the social sector and all the other businesses? The fourth I is the instantaneousness of the products. So today we are in a world of not only instant coffee, but instant Netflix, instant pizza, instant Ola, and instant results on search and all that, right? So we are now living in what we call a real-time decision world. So whatever decisions banks would make in 1 month to approve a loan, now we are talking about 2-minute loan approval or 5-minute delivery of something, right? So we are now getting more and more closer to instantaneous decision making. And the next 20 years, we are going to struggle with one more I, which is what we call integrated products. So today, Tesla by itself is a great product. Google Maps is a great product. Traffic system is a great product. Insurance company of car is a great product. How do I integrate all this into a single connected car ecosystem, for example, right? Or how do I think of smart city as a product? It's an integrated product with all the things coming together. So that is the next innovation that will happen. How do we integrate, let's say, our supply chain of agriculture, advisory of agriculture, weather sensors, all this into an integrated whole? So we have built bottom up, a lot of services and all that. We have not yet built what we would call, we have not built a body, we have built cells and tissues and organs. We are yet to build a body, right? So how do we do integration? And Mr. Mani keeps talking about integration is the next innovation. Okay? All right. So if I think about what is intelligence, where is it going? If we look at our own self, what is intelligence? If we think about the various levels of intelligence, right? So we are able to learn how languages work, how speech works, how a robot walks, how a business process works. So learning and making mistakes and improving. So now our accuracies on many things have gone up, right? So we are able to learn how to do what a radiologist do with an X-ray, or how to interpret images of a drone or what have you, right? So learning is one part. Understanding. Now we are able to understand. Instead of just saying we have cameras all over the place, now we can understand who is the person, what are they doing, are they wearing a helmet or not, has somebody fallen, is somebody doing a bad thing with crime against women or whatever, right? So how do we understand videos, understand images, understand text, understand gene sequences and all of that? So understanding ability has gone up. We are able to now do thinking algorithms. So now we are able to, simple things like how do you route a car on a Google map is also thinking. How do you have a conversation with a doctor and an AI conversation and saying what is your disease based on symptoms? Or how do you play a game of AlphaGo? So these are all thinking algorithms. These abilities are now there. And the fourth stage we have now crossed, which is creativity. So now the new stage of AI is generative AI. We are able to generate pieces of text. You just give it a few keywords and it will generate text. Or it will generate images, which are not there in the real world. It can generate images. It can generate music now. You can tell AI that, hey, I need a music which is in this raga and fusion music between this and this, and give it some examples. It can generate music. So now we are at the fourth stage of intelligence: learning, understanding, thinking, and creativity. AI has mastered all these four layers, not necessarily systematically the way human children do, but still we have foot in every part. And the fifth thing that we are really worried about, right, the Terminator scenario, is the consciousness, right? So now our AI will become so good that your autonomous car will say, don't go to the bar, now you need to go home, right? And all of that might happen. So consciousness might come at some point. Yeah? Thankfully not in our lifetime, but if it does, we'll have a different discussion here, right? Okay. So now, if I think about how adoption of AI happens, right, in an industry, and I've seen how AI was in the textbook in the early 2000s, and then Googles of the world made it a commodity as a search engine, as a recommendation engine, as a banking company in a FICO score. So I've seen how AI becoming a lab commodity to a decision system, and really adoption of AI in different companies is a very systematic stage-wise process, right? So if I look at the top thing, we all start with infrastructure. How do you crawl the web, index the web? How do you get all the cars onboarded onto your platform? How do you build a refinery? So this is all infrastructure. Then we automate the infrastructure and we say, how do I run it with a bunch of rules so that it's all automated? So that was the IT revolution. And now we are sitting on a lot of data. So because we are an automation system, we have corrected logs forever. Last 20 years of logs in banking, in insurance, in healthcare, everywhere we're sitting on large volumes of data. And now we are wondering, is this data is a liability now, right? I have to store it, maintain it, secure it, but can I do something with it? And that is the journey that we are in now. All of us are in this journey, a data rich to an AI first organization, right? And that's why people like me have a job, because we are trying to help that journey. Yeah? And how does that journey start? So we all, when I talk to different companies, and I work with startups, big companies also, and they all say we build reports, right? We all have built reports. We have bought Tableau software and all these software, and we see reports every day. And, the more reports you have, the more you feel good about it. But the more you feel inundated with reports, you don't know what to do with it, right? So AI is not BI, right? AI is something a lot more. But we think BI is the starting point, right? I make a very strong statement sometimes that dashboard is the first graveyard of data, because data goes there to die, right? Because once a report is gone from your view, it is gone. Then the next report will come, right? So, we have sold tableaus to the world, but in a way we have done a disservice. Yeah? The next thing is, we don't want to look at the future. What happened in this market, that market, last year, last summer. We just don't want to look at the past. We want to predict the future, right? So prediction is more important than, your reports. But prediction is again not enough. So if I can predict that a crop will fail, a child will fail in an exam, a person will get a heart attack in a Fitbit, or an employee will churn, prediction is good, but not enough. And then comes the next thing, which is how do you now intervene and say, can I create a new future than the one I'm predicting, right? A part is about to fail, what can I do beforehand? So now we are in the world of, because we can predict, we can be proactive in our decision making, and we can intervene. And making one decision is not enough. The world is not about one decision, it's about a sequence of decisions, right? A career path of a student, lifetime value of a customer, right? Your health is not a one-time decision, it's a continuous long-term decision, right? So now AI really helps us explore all possible futures and say, this is the one you should do now, because 5 steps later, you're going to win the game of chess, right? So how do we think about all futures and then take the current move, right? So this is the journey that a lot of companies are focusing on. Now we are at a third stage where most companies are able to drive individual decisions in silos, not long term, still better than just reporting at, looking at BI. Right? So now I'm going to talk about, the simple workflows of AI, right? How does AI work in a real world scenario? So what we do, and this was supposed to be a cycle. So what we do is, there are industries work on multiple workflows, right? So if I think of a workflow like an execution workflow, so somebody ordered, wants to onboard on a telecom network, so there's a workflow for that. Somebody wants to buy a new phone, there is a workflow for that, right? So there are execution workflows, there are efficiency workflows, which say, find opportunities where my business is inefficient, my process is inefficient, and then, try to find why they're inefficient. So that's an efficiency workflow. Then there is an expansion workflow, which is about what is the new opportunity? Where should I put my next cell tower? Which kind of customer segment should I go after? Which schools should I target for my loan application or whatever, right? So the expansion workflows. Then the fourth workflow is what we call an exception workflow. What if something goes wrong? What to do, right? So this is just an example of how you can think of AI as part of your workflow, right? It's not something special, it's just part of your regular workflow. So we start with monitoring everything, right? So we monitor everything, and then we discover what needs attention. And this is my big problem with dashboards. Dashboards tell you what is going on. I don't need to know what is going on. I need to know what needs attention. There's a big difference, right? So if I want to bubble up, these customers are about to churn, that is what I need to know. I don't need to know my total customer market size today, right? So what needs attention is a very important kind of AI. We talk about anomaly detection and all of that. The next is, why is it happening, right? So I know that this is happening. Why is it happening? What is the root cause? So root cause analysis is becoming a big problem. If you run a customer care center and a customer calls you and say, I have a problem, you know that to do a root cause manually for that one customer will take weeks, and now you're getting 200 calls a minute or a day. How are you going to scale that? So can AI help you with the root cause analysis, right? Then once you know what is the problem, why is it happening, then synthesizing an action has been automated now. It can be a rule-based system that says if this, then that, if this, then that. So now you do actions. and then you execute the action, because the action could be digital action, physical action, communication with the customer, sending a sales guy, sending an operations guy somewhere. So you execute their action, and where a lot of companies fail is they don't measure impact. They say we have taken an action, but they don't know if the customer complaint has gone down, right? So how do you tie your action to your next metric and then close the learning loop? And then you learn from it and say, maybe I did not, understand the root cause properly. Maybe my action suggestion was wrong, right? So what is wrong in the cycle you have to figure out, and it's a continuous learning process, right? It's not a input-output system. You continuously learn through that feedback. So today I'm going to talk about some of these ideas of AI thinking, metric thinking, right? How do you not work forward from data but backward from a metric? What are your business metrics? How do you clearly define them? Can you measure them? And then say what workflows are affecting this metric, and then how do you do it? So I'll show you examples of how great companies are metric-centric companies. State thinking. How do you convert a large volume of data of a single customer into 5 numbers of that customer, right? What is the state thinking? Then how do you do segmentation? A lot of us talk about segmentation. I'll give you some examples of why segmentation is not a trivial thing. There are not one ways to segment. There are many ways to segment the same thing. So how do you do it? Decision thinking. How do you make decisions? How do you measure them? How do you improve decisions on a continuous basis? IT thinking has not given us this idea that decisions are a continuously improving process. Google search is improving its decision all the time in the last 20 years. Little experiments here and there, right? So decision making is a continuous improvement task. We'll not talk about simulation, but simulation thinking will become very important in the future as we go along. Feedback thinking. Today we think of, okay, let's do a survey as a feedback, or a rating system as a feedback. Feedback is a very important part, but it doesn't get integrated into my decision making, right? Am I using feedback to improve my decision? There is a gap there, right? So how do we do that? Workflows. We talked about one example of a workflow. And system thinking. How do we create end-to-end system, not just do one POC here, one POC here? So you've improved the legs, but not the hands, and the system is still not working well. And you blame that, okay, this POC did not work, right? But because it depended on something else. So how do we do that? So let's talk about metric thinking. And one of the things I've learned is every company I work for, whether it's Google, Microsoft, Ola, they're very strong in their metric thinking. Yeah? So before we go there, they have inserted a poll. So let's do a poll. I don't know what's the question here. Yeah, go ahead. You can... Oh, I have to do that? Yeah. All right. So I don't know what the questions are, but... answer that people are giving. What is the answer thing that is coming? You can now project that, right? So really, one of the things that CXOs have to keep thinking about is, what is my metric maturity, right? Am I metric driven, therefore I am data driven, or am I just driving my business on gut feeling, right? So a lot of us are in the middle, right? And we understand the metrics, business metric, customer metrics, operation metrics. We track them, and we set the culture by starting with the customer metric first, and then operation, and then business. But this is one of the maturity that we have to achieve, right? What is my metric maturity? And hopefully, if you've done a lot of dashboards, then you have achieved a metric maturity. Yeah? Now, why is that important? If I look at the successful companies in AI, right? What do? They spend a lot of time defining their metrics very well, right? So Googles of the world, For them, click data is very important. If I give you a search result for a query, where are people clicking? So that's a metric that they compute, click-through rate. And now they have perfected the art of what is the click-through rate. So if you click and immediately come back, that's not a valid click. It took them years to figure this out. A lot of data understanding, right? And similarly, YouTube. If I recommend you a YouTube video and you click on it, is that a good metric? Or did you watch the full video and then came back? Is that a good metric? That one little change completely changes what you do with YouTube, right? So metric thinking is an art. You need to involve a lot of domain expert, user studies, all of that to define your metrics, right? Look at Amazon. It looks at like 50 different metrics between a customer and a product. Did you buy the product? Did you browse the product? Did you search the product? Did you read the review? Did you write the review? Did you add to wish list? Did you buy it at full price? Did you buy it at discount price? Right? Did you return the product? Unless you are that, complete in your metric thinking, you will not build hooks also into this, right? So metric thinking helps you put sensors into your system to say, I need to collect this data, right? For example, Byju's could say, hey, one metric could be how many, Byju's thing I have sold, but the real metric is a kid looking confused when I'm teaching him a concept in math? How will it do that metric? How will it know that this part of my video is very confusing to all the kids? How will it know that? Today there is technology where app can look at your face and do emotion recognition, and if you're frustrated or confused, it will tell Byju's that these 200 videos, these clips are very confusing, you need to redo them. That is a metric-driven organization, right? So how do we define metric, put knobs into the system to measure data, compute metrics, and drive actions from that, right? So it's a very important art that we all have to learn in a data-driven world. Yeah? Here is an example of rating systems as a metric, right? So we all have done right rating, wrong ratings, right? The worst rating system in the world I have seen is in the Ola world, Uber world, you have to rate the previous ride just before the next ride. What do people do? Yeah, everything is 5-star, move on. It's a wrong rating, right? Or something. Now, but if Book My Show says, oh, you booked my show, and I know that your show has ended, now I'm going to do immediately after the movie, I'll give you a 5-star rating system. That's a perfect way to do the rating, right? So how do you do rating systems well? Now, there's a deeper thing I want to talk about. So the idea is, let's say you have to clean up your rating system, right? My 3 is not your 3. You may be a 3 to 4 rating system, mine be 1 to, I'm more critical than somebody else. How do you normalize for ratings, right? How do you remove this customer bias, if you will, right? How do you then give different weightages? So I like when I go to a restaurant, let's say these are the factors. So you are saying ambience has a different rating and service is a different rating. So these are different dimensions of what is a good restaurant, bad restaurant. So I'm not just saying restaurant is good or bad. I'm saying is ambience good or bad? Is service good or bad? Is pricing good or bad? So now you've seen rating systems become more and more, fine-grained rating system. It's not 5-star for a whole movie. Is direction good? Is acting good? Is song good? So now rating systems have become a lot more. Now how do we use this in a more intelligent way? So now imagine customer A is more sensitive to one aspect of a restaurant. So user A likes ambience more. So which restaurant will you recommend user A? Versus user B likes service more. So which user, how would you rank the restaurant? Right? So customer centricity, metric system, and personalization of which aspect matters to whom. This is an innovation that we all can do in our businesses to think about feedback loop and metric systems and personalization of ranking systems, right? Now there's a lot of businesses out there which are operation businesses, right? Whether it's fleet management, Ola, Uber, Swiggy, Zomato, right? Delivery companies, Amazons of the world. And when I joined Ola, I was inundated by every product manager who said, I'm in charge of pricing, I'm in charge of onboarding cabs, I'm in charge of how we allocate customers to cabs. They all had their very important problems to solve, but they failed to understand that at the end of the day, they were only solving one problem, which is how do you match supply with demand? Ultimately, that's the problem in an operation business. It doesn't matter how fancy, whether you run a airline industry or a shipping industry or an Ola cab or a bike renting service. It's all about supply demand matching. And then we had to come up with an overall metric, not a pricing metric, not an allocation metric, not metrics at the lower level. What is the overall efficiency of Ola or NetMeds or whatever? And say, can I match supply and demand wherever it matters more? And now, if you are nearby in that range, you are a good operations company, right? Otherwise, your fulfillment will suffer or your utilization will suffer. So it's a very simple idea. We've talked about simplicity of metric thinking. It's not that you're really looking at 200 connected metrics. It all boils down to few very core metrics, right? How do we think about it? This is a very important slide. Now we are actually building what we call complex systems, right? I mean, if you think of Ola, Uber or Amazon, these are very complex systems. They have many, many types of things going on all the time. How do you do metric thinking in a complex system, right? So it's a network of metrics. So let me start from left to right. So now I know that these are the incentives I am giving to my drivers. These are the offers I am giving to my customers. This is the organic demand of cabs in a city based on commute and weekend. What does that lead to? So that leads to supply and demand ratio. What does that lead to? That leads to availability, stock out, pricing, utilization metrics. What does that lead to? That leads to fulfillment, conversion, experience, and efficiency. What does that lead to? That leads to engagement, ARPU, churn, revenue, and cost. And what does that lead to? The ability to draw a network of metrics is a very critical skill set. And it doesn't come because I'm a data scientist. It has to come from the domain people, from the SMEs who are initially charged with their own metrics, but they don't know how their metrics is going to lead to another metric. We are dealing with a collection of metrics that are interdependent. So tomorrow if Bhavesh from Ola says, hey, I want to increase my market share, do whatever it takes. I'm losing market share. I should be able to go backwards and say, why is my market share low? Right? Because let's say cost of running a business is low or engagement of customer is low, right? Then why is that low? Because of this. Why is that low? Because of this. Can I work backwards on my metrics and figure out the root cause via the metric network, right? So this is a very important way of thinking about AI. So AI is not about some Python and some this thing, right? I keep talking about metric first there. Yeah? Another very important thing about AI is the state thinking. This is something that we all do, but we have not yet imbibed this idea as an explicit idea. So we think that we are going from data directly to decisions. We are not. We are building something in the middle called the state of the entity, right? So if I look at the stimulus data coming from one side, let's say you go to a doctor and say, these are my symptoms, these are the test results. So that is stimulus data. Now with the stimulus data, what does the doctor do? He analyzes all that data and comes up with your state of the health and says, do you have dengue, do you have high sugar, high BP? So that is the state of your health. Now the state thinking is the critical thing. How do you convert all your raw data not into 5 dashboards, but state of every entity in your business? Is my student, what does he know, what does he not know, is the state of learning of a student, right? In my Fitbit, what is the state of cardiac health, gastric health, ye health, wo health, right? If I'm running a banking business, I need to know what is your capacity score, what is your credit score, what is your fraud score, what is your discipline score, for example. Can I convert millions of transactions into 5 numbers that are semantically very important? That is state thinking. When I'm playing chess, I look at a board and say, this is my board, this is the state of the game, right? So state thinking is very important. And once you know what is state thinking, then you can reason your way out and say, this is the best action in this state. This is a loyal customer who has a high potential to become more valuable, but therefore I need to be able to upsell him more products. But this is a new customer who is still joining the business. I need to give him a different kind of an experience. So it depends on whether you have understood the state of the entity well, therefore are you taking the right actions, right? So state to action thinking is critical, which drives stimulus the data to response on the other side, right? And then what does the AI system do? It keeps learning with the feedback loop, right? And it says, okay, in this stimulus, I gave you this response. Did it work out or not? So I saw your, you're closing down your bank accounts and all that. So that is stimulus data. State is your churn score is going up. That is your state. So you have summarized all that into one set of numbers. And then you say this is the action based on what your past behavior is. And did you still churn or did you prevent the churn? So next time I'll improve all my system. So this learning loop is what we have to put in place, which has a very systematic process that you can do. Right? It took me 20 years to build this slide. Not for this conference, but figure this out. Okay? Okay. So now in the medical world, for example, if you tell the symptoms, the doctor will tell you what is the possible diseases. Right? So diagnosis is a state thinking. Stimulus is your input data. Right? If you think about this in other domains, like in banking domain, I can think about all this data I'm collecting from different sources, your SMSs, your transaction, your online activity, whatever. And then I can define your state in only like 5 very high level numbers, right? What is your credit score, capacity score, behavior score, fraud score, discipline score, and all that. And now using these 5 scores only, I can come up with a very nice action system, right? And that's what we do. We see bits and pieces, right? I look at your CIBIL score and income and come up with a rating decision, right? But it can become very, very holistic when you look at multiple dimensions of a customer, right? Same thing in retail, we can think about what data do I have, what state intermediate which I can create from my low level data, high level states, and then what can I do in terms of driving decision. This 3-stage process is very critical for us to drive AI transformation in our company. Yeah, we cannot say here are the decisions I need to make, here are the data, go figure it out, right? Unless we help them with the middle layer, they're not going to come up with this themselves. And we need to put SMEs in the room with the data scientists. Segmentation is another buzzword that we all use, but now I'm going to talk about segmentation as a very broad theme. So, this is a slide from 20 years ago when we did segmentation for Best Buy data. And now we came up with segments. Now this is great. They changed their marketing strategy and say we are going to give the right coupons to the right customer and all that would happen. So that is one example of what segmentation can do. This is a 3-line of code in AI software which transformed hundreds of millions of dollars of their marketing budget into a very small amount. You can say millions of dollars per line of code. That is how powerful AI can be. It's really true. I've seen it in many industries. And that's the power, right? Software is like 100 rupees per line, but this is like $1 million per line. That is the state of AI right now. Yeah? So now what we did was we looked at 2 stores and we said, look, store A, a lot of people are buying DVDs on the top left, less of appliances. Store B, a lot of people are buying appliances, not DVDs. What's going on? Insight. And then they realized that this store is near a university area and that store is near a rich neighborhood. Until this slide, they had the same layout throughout all the stores. After that, they said, why don't you give me 5 different layouts, one for downtown, one for urban, one for rural, one for this. And they saw a complete change in how much time people took to come in, come out and buy a lot of products, right? So very simple 5 lines of code can transform your major decisions that we do, right? Whether it's a tactical or a strategic decision. One of the things I learned on the way is, and sorry about this Russian looking things in the middle, but really when I look at a customer, I don't have to look at him in one perspective. I can look at a customer in many, many perspectives, right? So what I can see is that this is, let's say in the Ola world, the blue, the first one is I can look at a few dimensions like how many bookings you make, how much revenue you generate, how many rides you take, and say these are my features and I'll give you a value perspective of the customer, right? Then I can say what kind of cabs do you ride? Do you ride auto or mini and all that? I look at only that aspect as a single thing and create clustering there. Then I can say what kind of experience I'm giving you and I can give you an experience segmentation. So the idea is segmentation is not a global single thing. You can do many aspects of segmentation. In healthcare, you can segment a person by their cardiac health is a separate thing and mental health is a separate thing. One thing can be better, one thing can be worse, right? So how do you see customers from multiple angles? It's like the five blind men reversed, right? So it is really, you can look at a customer in multiple ways. Here's an example of Ola. So this is, we looked at the same customer base from one point of view, which is which type of cabs do you take? And what day of week do you take Ola? Sorry, what day of week do you take Ola? So we look at a person's last 6 months of history and did a distribution. How many days you do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and that a distribution, and then we did clustering on that. Now that gave us very beautiful clusters. First cluster is daily Ola users. So they need Ola every day. Second is weekday Ola users. Third is only weekend Ola users. And fourth one is, they start driving their own car, and after a while they realize that, can't do it anymore. So by the time it is Friday, they just take an Ola, right? Now, what can you do with this insight is up to the business leaders when they look at this. And they'll say, look, I could do, I can give a weekend rental coupon to weekend customers only, because that's when they depend on Ola, but I will make it nice and juicy and say take a rental instead of a regular prime. I get more revenue, you get to do multiple stops, right? Or if I have a commute coupon going on between 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. and 5 p.m. to 7 p.m., I could generate a commute program only for my second customers, right? So the idea is, this is innovation, 2 stages of it. What is data telling you? Are you reading it correctly? And what are you doing on top of it? Another example of the same customer base, now I'm looking at very differently. I'm saying, what kind of cabs do you take? Do you take all OTA or, auto, micro, mini, prime? So now first segment is a prime segment. Now today what happens? Let's say Ola says, I want to increase my prime revenue. What should I do? Let me send prime coupons to everyone. It's a useless exercise. Why? Because the first segment is anyway your prime segment. You're wasting your marketing money on giving them a free prime ride. They will anyway take a prime. The second segment, they are willing to take any car, they are not particular, but they don't go with Ola or Share, right? The third one are more price conscious. The fourth one is even more price conscious, and so on and so forth. Last one is only auto. Now, if I send a prime coupon to an auto guy, he will take it for that day and never come back to prime. So I'm wasting my market money on the wrong customer. Right? So the idea of using these insights and combining them, this and the previous and the 5 others, to create a business strategy around every customer is a skill set. That's an innovation that AI is enabling now, right? So segmentation is a very powerful thing. Let's use it properly. I don't know why this poll is here, but let's do the poll now. I've never seen a slide deck with QR codes. Like, here is your new slide. So now I think everyone got a QR code. You can show the results now as they are coming. Sorry? Okay. Give more time, yeah. Go. Do you need the QR code? Okay. It's not a very difficult question, right? 5 points per question. Huh? Yeah? So we have 29 responses now, right? So we're good, right? So see, I think we are still on the lower side of how do we do decision making, right? We do a lot of manual and rule-driven decision making. We are not utilizing the full power of AI. And that's what I think decision thinking is, right? We should really change the word data science to decision science. Really, it's a decision backward thinking. So what do? We started with being a sensor civilization, right? We have improved our sensors from Galileo telescope to this. So now we are a sensor civilization. And by the way, all the products we have built, Ola is a sensor, by the way. telecom is a sensor. Google Pay is a sensor. Because anything that collects data is a sensor. One of the things we have to realize is we are not building products. We are first building sensors. Everyone is building sensor because you are collecting a lot. So now we are collecting all kinds of sensor, right? Facebooks of the world, Google's, click logs and tweets and reshare and post. So we are actually a sensor civilization. Whether it's a physical sensor, like a medical sensor, soil IoT, temperature, thermometer, or it's a digital sensor, which is all your apps are sensors. You buy something, your credit cards, every banking transaction, this is all sensors. Okay? We are now a data civilization because we were a sensor civilization. So do you have the right sensors in your systems in place? Are you a data-rich civilization because you are a sensor civilization? And now we are saying, therefore we are a data civilization, right? So can I now say, can I do each of these decisions better, right? Can I put my right pages and the right ads for a query? It's a decision. Google makes 5 billion times a day. It's a decision organization, right? LinkedIn says, who should I connect you next? YouTube says, what video should I send you next, right? You want to open the new store, where should you open a new store? So you are really a collection. A business is nothing but a collection of decisions, right? Each of these lines, by the way, is a $1 billion industry, if not a $1 trillion industry, right? Even Shadi.com and Resume and Naukri.com, these are all decisions. So we are a decision civilization. We have hard-coded those decisions using some business rules and logic, and those decisions are not improving anymore. We are still collecting data, but we are not using and improving the decisions. So let me show you how we think about decision evolution. What does it mean to make better decisions? What is possible with AI? So one is broadcast to personalized decision, right? So today, a billboard on a road is a broadcast decision. Everybody sees it. But a very personalized message on your SMS that says you are going to get a cartridge coupon because 3 months ago you bought a printer. And only such people will get a cartridge coupon today. That is the personalized decision, right? What should each child learn today is a personalized decision. What is a broadcast decision? Our NCRT school system is a broadcast decision. Every child learns the same thing at the same pace, does the same homework, one size fits all, and look how many Nobel Prizes we have won in the last 100 years. 7. Seriously, we need to think about that, right? So decisions can become very personalized, whether it is farmer advisory, healthcare advisory, with Fitbit, all that, right? So now personalization is the new thing. It is possible because we have a profile of every user. Batch to real time. We cannot live with Monday sale, Diwali sale, Sunday coupons. That's not how the world works anymore. We are in an instantaneous world. I missed a ride to the airport at 4 o'clock in the morning in Ola. An event has happened. We should know customer is unhappy. I should immediately send him 5 free rides to airport. Thank God he doesn't live in Bangalore, right? That's another thing. Then how do we go from being reactive to proactive, right? So today we are reactive. Imagine a customer care center where you receive a call when the customer is already upset versus if your data is already telling you that this customer is having a lot of call drops at his home in the evening. If I already know that from my data, can I not be proactive and say, let's do something before he calls and let us call him and tell him that we are working on it? That is proactive, right? If I know that a farmer is going to ruin his crop, can I be proactive? From satellite data, IoT data, all of that, right? So how do we be proactive, right? If I know customer is about to churn, can I be proactive? Instead of gaining him back with 10x more money of reacquisition. And can I not make tactical decisions for the now, but for the long term, right? So can I not think in terms of what was I able to sell him on day one to a new customer versus how much was the lifetime value I achieved on that customer, right? So now we are moving from tactical to strategic decision making. Sometimes you have to lose the queen to win the game, kind of a thing, right? So how do we do that? So AI can do all of this if we apply it systematically. Here is an example of prediction versus explanation versus decision. So today, if I look at, this is from call center notes collections company. So now we looked at their data and we said these are the reasons why people are saying they will not be able to pay. And those were the scores. And we looked at the heat maps together And we realize the high score doesn't mean do the same thing. High score can be high score because of different reasons. Understand the reason code. So that top right high score is unable to reach, so maybe I should just call him at a different time. But the payment disputes are happening at the lower bottom side. The reason code is different. I should approach differently. I cannot have same decision for a same score. That's a wrong approach because the reason code is very important. Yeah? So how do we go deeper into why the things are happening, not what is happening? Feedback thinking, again, AI is a learning loop, right? So we all understand. I cannot put a face detection system built on, white people's data, put it in India and say, why is it not working? It has to have your sample of data. So what we do, we have a reality out there. We are sampling the data of that reality. So Ola has a different sample of reality of commute of a city than Uber. Flipkart versus Amazon, right? Google versus Bing. So they all have a different sample of some reality they are trying to discover. And now with the data, we are discovering and refining our knowledge. Oh, these are the customer segments. This is how behavior works. And then we are using that knowledge to generalize. And now we have a model of reality. So what is AI doing? What is your brain doing every day? It's sampling your life experience, right? Building a model of the world. So we all have a model of the world. Nobody knows what reality is. And then we are continuously learning. Is my reality correct or not? Did I discover a new type of dog? Oh, Chihuahua is also a dog. So I've refined my knowledge, right? I've discovered new knowledge. So this loop continuously works. And one of my struggles with CXOs is, you guys think that IT has worked on day one, right? Somebody came, installed a software, fixed a few bugs, and it is working now. My railway reservation system, income tax system, this is all IT software. It is working on day one. Why AI is not working on day one? Well, it will not work on day one, and we need to have patience to say it's a learning loop. It worked in some context. I have installed from a vendor a new software. My system is different. It needs to relearn how it works here. It's like asking, why is my child not a PhD on day one? Right? So installing an AI system is like having a 4-year-old child, but not a PhD on day one. So we need to have that patience. But we need to put this loop in practice. And this is what people miss. They say it's an IT system, it should work like an IT system, which is not an IT system. One of the very important skills that, if I look at why Amazon and Flipkart, what is different about them? Why Ola and Uber are different? So we think it's a customer market share game. It's a revenue game. It's a cost game. Actually, it's a data game. In the world of AI, it's a data game. The company who is collecting more data, even at the cost of reducing the price. Free Google search. Why free Google search? Why Chrome? Why Android? Why build your own cell phone? So that you do not lose what we call click data. So when we say data is the new oil, data doesn't mean the internet that you download. That anybody can download. That is not the real data. Your data is your click data, your feedback loop data, right? So that is the label data is your true data. That is your unique advantage over everybody else. Yeah? And that is why label data is protected very much. So Google has open sourced TensorFlow, and all these big companies has open sourced a lot of AI software. Why? Why do you think they're not worried that some startup will beat them on search? Or why are they not worried at all? Because they know that you cannot get the label data that you really need to build your AI system, right? So the name of the game is label data. So what is your data strategy versus what is your label data strategy, right? Are you sucking in YouTube, Twitter, and knowing enough about what is going on about your products, right? Do you have enough sensors, right? Do you have an army of people who are labeling your data correctly so that you can build better models? So label data strategy is becoming more important. And now we think about implicit and explicit feedback, right? If explicit feedback is, imagine if Google says, did you like your search result today? They never ask that. Why? Because they are doing implicit feedback. You are clicking on first result or third result or 10th result or going to next page is already telling them, did you like the results or not? So implicit feedback without doing anything explicit, no surveys, no reviews. Can you bake implicit feedback into your natural process so that the consumer doesn't have to do something extra, explicit to give you that data, right? So how do we go from explicit feedback to implicit feedback? That's an important journey to think about, because that is, we know that that is the core. So how do we do implicit, right? An example of that, right? So let's say you are building an, campaign system. So you have sent some campaigns, then you have to put a hook, who has opened it. If you don't put that hook and get a log back that says who has opened it, sent you know, you don't know who has viewed it, you don't know who has clicked it, you don't know who has converted, so you have lost the opportunity of collecting feedback data. So how do you design campaign as a service? We need to think about all this and then say, I executed my campaign based on my initial model, some idea, some rule-based system. If age is this, income is this, gender is this, send this coupon. Initial model, executed the campaign, got the feedback, and now I can train my next model. Is it a continuously improving system? I need to think about the next model, not the first model. This is a very important learning. AI system is a loop. People say, I have built the first model, I'm done. You're not done. Unless you tell me how will you take the feedback data and improve your model to the next version, you're not done. This is not like IT that, a version doesn't mean the same thing here than in the IT world, right? So version of the model means, is it a better version than before? Am I getting more conversion rate next time than before? Am I sending the right, more targeted coupons next time? And you can actually learn this from data in a very iterative manner. So are we putting a learning loop in that sense? Here's an example on a large bank in the US. So what we did, we looked at these 4 scores and we put all their millions of customers on a very simple UI. And the top right is high credit rating customer, low credit rating, high revenue, medium is revenue rating, and that is attrition. Now these 3 pictures are enough to teach you what goes on in the banking system. This is the crux of all lending. This is the crux of all lending, right? So you have high customers who are very good in credit score. They don't generate very much revenue for you. The guys in the middle, on the top right, in the middle, they are the ones who generate revenue for you, right? So you need to find the right balance of risk and reward, and they are the ones who are most ready to attract to a new bank who is giving them a lower rate. So these 3 slides tell you everything you need to know from a data-driven perspective about your customer. So here's what a bank did. So what they did, they generated their first model which said, let's find a way to increase the credit limit of people. So they increased credit limit using some heuristic rule. And then I forced them to monitor those customers over the next 4 quarters. And what happened? Quarter A to B to C to D, some customers became worse, right? They became worse. They started maxing out their higher credit limit. Some customers became better. So now what do we do? So I started with a decision. Partly it was right for some customer, partly it was wrong for some customer. What do I do next? How do I improve that decision? So now we look at what is the difference between these customers and these customers in their demographic features, in their behavior features and all that. Now we built a second model which could distinguish between that customer and this customer as a 2-class problem. Now that went in as a second model. And that is how we do a continuous improvement. So we make a decision, we monitor the progress, then we redo our models, and then we continue. Okay? So just to summarize, I think digital transformation 2.0 is going on, right? A lot of data is still not digitized, so we need to think about digitizing a lot of data. Today we are still living in a printout world. A scanned receipt or a PDF file is not digitization. Converting your paper to PDF is not digitization. Yeah? I hope you understand that, right? Okay, I've sent an email, so it is digitized. It's not digitized, right? Unless you have extracted key values from it and stored it in a searchable way, it is not digitized. Automation, we all understand. So find these gaps. Do I have digitization gap in my business? Do I have automation gap in my business? Do I have intelligence gap in my business, right? Am I able to democratize AI in my company and say anybody can build a model, anybody can consume a model? Am I democratizing data in my company, or is it sitting in silos that nobody can do anything because in the name of security and privacy? There are ways to deal with that, but let's not use it as an excuse to not democratize data. Am I being inclusive, right? Can you build a farmer app in English language and say I've built a farmer app? right? You have to build it in all Indian languages, right? So how are we doing on languages and speech technologies? Are we being inclusive? When you're building a app for rural India, what are you doing, right? And then are we personalizing the hell out of my decisions, right? And what can I do to continuously improve that? And how do you build trust in people? Why would a person trust AI doctor when he doesn't even trust a human doctor these days, right? So trust is becoming a big issue, right? Is a bank trustworthy? Is whatever business trustworthy? So these are the guiding principles on how do we go to digital 2.0, and I shared some of the insights earlier. Thank you so much.